is it nursing? You're gonna die. All right, good evening, folks. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and call to order the Wednesday, February 21st, 2024 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Before we get started, if you guys would all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next piece of business, if I could get an approval of the minutes from the December 20th, 2023 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second. Who made the motion?
John.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, who was the second?
Second was Patrick.
Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. We do have a quorum. To my left, I've got Patrick McTeague, Sherry McCartney, and Marilyn Mamano. And to my right, I've got Jay Scheckman, John Barranco, Mary Fertig, and I don't believe Steve Gann's here yet, so we're down 2 players. Oh, here comes Steve now. So we'll get him in here. If you are here to testify or be heard, please stand and get sworn in.
Hello. If you're going to speak to the board tonight, can you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right. And also, so that everybody knows who the team players are, we've got Ella Parker, who's the Planning and Zoning Board Liaison, Dwayne Spence, the Deputy City Attorney, Sherry Wallen, the Assistant City Attorney. Did I see Jim Hetzel here? I'll just call them out. Carl-Ann Devanich, Adam Schnell, Yvonne Redding, Michael Ferreira, and Nancy Garcia. And Leslie is our prototype services taking the minutes of the meeting. So with that said, is Davina Bean here? Welcome. Okay, so our first item is case UDP P21007. Do I get disclosures on this, Dwayne? Okay, we'll start down with you, Marilyn. Disclosures, please.
None.
Sherry? Did you get?
None.
Patrick?
None.
Jay?
None.
Mr. Braun?
None.
None.
I visited the site.
You just what? I'm sorry. Oh, okay. And none for me. All right. Good evening.
All right, good evening.
Welcome. The floor is yours.
Okay. So I'm here representing the U-Haul Company of Fort Lauderdale in reference to our site at 1800 State Road 84. In reference to the plat approval tonight. Is anyone have any questions regarding?
I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't mean to interrupt, but can you state your name too?
Of course. My name is Davina Bean. My address is 790 Southwest 12th Avenue, Pompano Beach, Florida. All right. So we're here for approval for the plat that's been stated for our development at State Road 84. Does anyone have any questions regarding the project or what the intent is?
Any questions? Not hearing none. We will go ahead and open this up to the public. Is there anybody here to speak on behalf or opposed to? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, bring it back to the board for more discussion or a vote, or a motion. I'm sorry, not a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Marilyn.
What's in front of us tonight is simply the subdivision of a parcel out of another parcel. We're not approving or reviewing the site plan? I'm asking that as a question.
Oh, no, the site plan has already been approved.
Site plan's already been approved?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any motions? Microphone.
You want me to turn my microphone on? Okay. I have a long resolution in front of me. Would you like me to read the whole resolution?
So for the plat, the resolutions apply to the site plan level 3s. Those are the other items.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have the wrong address, so I'll just move. Hold on. Which
I'm
is
sorry,
that?
were you making a motion?
I was going to make a motion because I thought I was so clever that I had these things in front of me. But it was Powerline Road I was making it on. So, but I'll still make a motion if you'd like me to. Yes.
Actually, before we do, on items tonight where we've got staff reports, is it the pleasure of the board to make the staff reports part of the findings?
Please.
Yes.
All in
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
All right. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. That helped. I found the right paper.
All right.
I move to recommend approval of case number, yes, and UDP P21007, based on the following findings of fact from the staff report, and the board finds that the application meets the applicable criteria of the ULDR cited in the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Was that you, Patrick?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yes. Just a question for staff, if staff is available to answer any questions on this item. Is this a cleanup? Is that what essentially this is? Because typically this comes up during the site plan process. You do a...
Microphone's off.
All right. Yes, this is just a cleanup. One of the conditions of the site plan approval was that the plat had to go forward and be approved before a building permits could be applied for.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Scheckman,
Yes.
Mr. Bronco,
Yes.
Miss McCartney,
Yes.
Mr. Gannon,
Yes.
Miss Mamano, Mr. McTeague,
Yes.
Miss Vertick,
Yes.
Chair Weymouth.
Yes. Congratulations. Get to work. All right. Second case, case number UDP S22004. Start with disclosures. Again, we'll start down there with you, Marilyn. Sherry?
I spoke with Attorney Crush.
Spoke with counsel for the applicant.
I spoke with counsel for the applicant. Communicated with the attorney for the applicant.
Spoke with counsel for the applicant.
I spoke with Ms. Crush, and I received all these letters. Would you like me to read them, the names one by one?
No.
Okay, thank you.
And I also spoke with the applicant's counsel. All right. Courtney?
Microphone is on. Good evening, Mr. Chair. Courtney Crush on behalf of Melrose Place LLC, the property owner. With me this evening is Ray Vivas with the property owner, architect Seth Yeslow, traffic engineer Carl Peterson, all of whom are here to answer any questions the board may have. The property that you see, the rendering on the screen, is located at 2900... Yeah, this side, please. West Broward Boulevard, on the south side. Neighboring properties on the boulevard itself are a 7-Eleven gas station. There is a Starbucks nearby. To the south is the Melrose Manors Neighborhood Association. On the north side of the street is more B1 Commercial and Boulevard Gardens neighborhood at that area. The property is Zone B1, which, as this board well knows, permits commercial uses. Office, hotel, other commercial uses, has standardized setbacks and a maximum height of 150 feet. Next slide, please. We are proposing a mixed-use project here. 85 residences with 6,700 square feet of ground-level office. Our client is very excited with this location and the opportunity to bring some multifamily at a moderate price point, and introduce some office at the location, which serves the purpose of both activating the boulevard in addition to the other site amenities that I'll take you through, but also gives the opportunity. I think the market has found that some people, or percentage of people who live in multifamily buildings, actually would like to work nearby, not quite from home. So this seemed like a perfect use at the location. Next slide, please. The site plan that is before you on the screen, as you can see, provides a 1,700 square foot public plaza, really reconstructs the Broward Boulevard hardscape experience. We're also including a gym for the residences on 29th, and this is a building that has 3 levels of parking, has a 67% lot coverage, so a significant amount of open space, balancing, we think, both the commercial uses, the commercial zoning, and also in design being very intentional with respect for both our commercial neighbors and our residential neighbors. Next slide, please. This is the image of the 85 residences. As you can see, articulation, the architect, this is a 360-degree building where thought and movement, vertical elements and materials are incorporated. Next slide, please. The program itself, I took you through briefly. We are, as part of the site plan application, seeking a very modest one-space parking reduction. As I mentioned, Mr. Peterson is here to answer any questions. We are fully parking the 85 residences and also providing 27 commercial spaces for the office. Mr. Peterson's analysis, with the staff reviewed and agreed with, was that given the different peak times that someone would be parking to go to an office, especially if they live in the building, versus the time that someone would come home to either sleep, are really offset. So the one space seems fully accommodated by the generous amount of parking. Next slide, please. I'm just going to walk you around a little bit. This is the Broward Boulevard Plaza, expansive, well-lit, designed, engaging, with both the pedestrian streetscape as well as, you can see, the ground level uses at the first floor. Next slide, please. This is the gym that I mentioned. Again, trying to include amenities for the residents, but also being respectful and not proposing intense commercial, restaurant music uses like that. Next slide. Just continuing around the building where you see there's an inset cutout with the opportunity on the south to introduce visual interest. Staff, as you know, tries to make sure that, we don't have, whether it's 3 stories or not, parking garages that don't give, again, the respect to the residential neighbors across the street. So the opportunity to have this inset recedes the form and also allows us the opportunity to introduce art, as well as you can see in other locations, some of the green treatment on the garage, as well as an artistic pattern. Next slide, please. The perspective that you have seen before. Next slide. I think we'll go back to that right there. To the last slide, maybe, the rendering. This has been a very methodically processed application, as this board certainly knows. The city typically in the commercial corridors could allocate flexibility units. In this case, we are seeking to utilize Geller units. At this point in time, to pay the $10,300 per unit. So there will be a contribution to the County City Affordable Trust Fund of $875,000. Mr. Ray is going to continue to evaluate. This is west of 95. As you probably saw, it's across the street and a little bit west of the Walmart Center. It's not that far away from Tri-Rail, so it may be that the actual rents might allow Ray to actually provide them. And your staff has indicated we can elect that as long as it's prior to building permit. You probably also saw in your backup, we had public participation meetings, both with Melrose Manors and also Boulevard Gardens back in the spring of 2022. We did share some of the support letters, and we included the owner's summary of the attendance at the meeting. I believe there were 15 residents at the Melrose Manors meeting, at least that I attended, and then 8 at Boulevard Gardens. So that's why Ray and his team thought it was important to go out into the community and get some feedback. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant's counsel?
Can I just add, I think I forgot to say that I visited the site, so if I could just add that.
Okay. Steve, I see your light on.
Yep, thanks. Question on the levels and where the parking is and whatnot. So the first floor is retail. Is there some parking on the first floor for retail, or is that for residences also, or how is that laid out? There's 3 levels of parking, I hear, garage. Can you?
I want to make sure I'm accurate. I believe the retail parking, the 27, is on the first floor, but I will have Seth.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Seth Yeslow, architect with Stephen L. Cohen and Associates. To answer your question, sir, yes, there will be dedicated spaces on the ground floor. There are 3 levels of parking. As Courtney said, this is a 360-degree architecture. The building is wrapped on the north, east, and west sides, or south side, I should say, to provide ample screening of the parking. So there will be 3 levels of parking, but again, significantly buffered. And as Courtney showed you with the renderings, with different architectural treatments, massing, modulation of the building facade. So those retail parking spaces will be provided on the ground floor, and then residential parking, some residential parking on the ground floor as well, but then significantly all residential parking on the second and third floors. There is, you mentioned retail. This is an office component. The idea is to have office space. The office space is on the ground floor as well as on the second floor, fronting Broward. So there will likely also be some allocation of parking on the second floor just for the office component, but otherwise heavily concentrated on that level and the next level for residents.
Okay, that's what I saw. It looked like there was some residences or offices or something on the other floor, a mixture on floors. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions before we open it up to public comment? Is there anybody from the public that wishes to be heard on this item? Sir, please come forward, state your name for the record. Before you start, sir, just as a general note to everybody, I'm going to allocate 3 minutes per speaker unless you're the president of an HOA or an association. So please state your name, sir.
Yes, my name is Jerry Covington. By the way, good evening. My name is Jerry Covington. I'm president of Melrose Manors Homeowners Association.
So I'll give you 5 minutes.
Okay.
Are you speaking on behalf of the Homeowners Association?
Yes.
Okay.
We've had numerous meetings, as Ms. Crush already spoke of, and we've had a number of them were not really contentious, but we were concerned about the buildings, the building itself, and the location of the building, and the height of the building. We know that this building could be up to 15 stories tall. Okay, we know that. The concern is of the homeowners is ingress and egress. I have not heard, nor have we heard, whether or not the traffic study has been done on Broward Boulevard, eastbound. Right now, today, I went out to Broward Boulevard approximately 8 o'clock, and there is gridlock on 29th Avenue, which is the road immediately to the east of this where the building would be. It was gridlock there, and it was gridlock on 28th Terrace as well. People trying to exit onto Broward Boulevard so that they can go to work, do whatever it is that they need to do. And it takes a lot of time to get out of there. One of the things that binds this as well is the fact that there's Starbucks and other properties just to the east of this building. And if the homeowners, not homeowners, but the residents of this building want to leave to go out on Broward Boulevard, that's going to further create massive gridlock. We've already have around our neighborhood areas of gridlock that we reported to the city of Fort Lauderdale. On 27th Avenue, they've they've narrowed the road down to single lanes, north and south. And it is difficult to get out onto 27th Avenue. Broward Boulevard is almost impossible for you to get out of Melrose Manor. And this is what my concern is, and the homeowner's concern is, how has anything been done to alleviate or to take care of or to minimize gridlock coming out of our neighborhood? We'd like to get to work on time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on this item? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close it, bring it back to the board. Would you like to address his concerns, if you would?
If I may, with respect to, would you mind going back to the colored site plan for me? I think it was the second or third slide in there. With respect to design, the access is on the northeast corner of the block. We actually have an internalized drop-off, which pulls cars as they're coming down Southwest 29th Avenue into the site. Two-way drive aisles, so that we believe we have located this, certainly not proposing to put something closer to the neighborhood to the south, not proposing a cut on Broward Boulevard that would create what Mr. Covington is describing as, what every Starbucks and Chick-fil-A creates at certain locations, very unfortunately, but really tried to internalize our operation and access. With respect to traffic, and I apologize, Mr. Covington, I did speak to the parking analysis. The use itself is a low traffic generator. Residential generates significantly fewer cars on the road than a hotel or an office building, or unfortunately, again, certainly a Starbucks. The project generates 42 a.m. peak hour trips, which is that 2-hour window, and 51 p.m. peak hour trips for a total of 470 daily trips. That trip statement was reviewed again by staff. As you all know, if something is approaching generating more than 1,000 trips, the city would then go further and ask for a further analysis of the area. But again, I think both the design of the site as well as the use are actually a help to this section of the corridor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crush. Are there any questions from the board? Any comments?
One question, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Courtney, have you or has anybody on the design team or the traffic engineer met with FDOT yet? I'm sure you will eventually.
We may eventually.
You're on Broward Boulevard. That's a state road, correct?
We are. We're not proposing a cut on Broward Boulevard. I would have to defer to Carl as to whether we would need to have the driveway reviewed because they're on Southwest 29th.
Right.
Good evening, Carl Peterson, KBP Consulting, 8400 North University Drive. Courtney's correct. Our proposed site plan takes access off of 29th Avenue, so there's no driveway that would be directly on Broward Boulevard. So technically, we really don't have to coordinate with FDOT. I believe that we did on this project just because it's a matter of good practice to coordinate with them concerning landscaping and hardscaping to make sure that everything's being done in accordance with their preferences as well as Broward County. But in terms of getting a pre-application letter or permit or anything like that, because we're not asking for access on the state highway system, we don't need a letter from them.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments?
A quick question. Did I see that the gym looks like it's outside or a covered, or it's an outside gym in a covered area or something? An area, huh? Okay, just curious.
Both inside and out.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Can you speak into the mic?
Yes, Mr. Gannon is both inside and there is an outdoor area for, I guess, hot yoga.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Hearing or seeing none, would somebody like to make a motion?
Chair, before you do that, if we can get disclosures from Mr. Cohen.
Oh, sorry. I was going to.
applicant's counsel called me, but I didn't have time to call her back. but I spoke to her briefly. That's it.
Okay. Any motion?
Okay, thank you. It takes everybody I know to get me to. Okay, I'm going to recommend approval of UDPS 22004. Hold on, I have to find the right one here. Oh, adopt the resolution. I'm sorry, I had that resolution, which I will not read the whole thing. I will just move to adopt it. Approving a site plan level 3 in the case number that I just read based on the following findings of fact. And the board finds that the application meets the standards and requirements in the ULDR and criteria for the proposed use as cited in the resolution. Also, there are 3 conditions to this, and we're recommending all 3 conditions.
So this is an approval of a conditional use, so you wouldn't be recommending, you'd just be approving it. Would you like to change that to approval of a conditional use?
I'm sorry, I was reading off the top of it without getting to the next part. Okay. Motion to approve that same resolution based on the following findings of fact. And the approval of the conditions.
We
The
have a
3
motion.
conditions.
Second. We have a second. Any further discussion? Leslie, please call the roll.
Yes.
Ms. Mamano?
Yes.
Mr. McTeague?
Yes.
Mr. Barranco?
Yes.
Mr. Scheckman?
Yes.
Ms. McCartney?
Yes.
Ms. Fertig?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Chair Weymouth?
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So it would appear that items 3 and 4 may be companion items. Is it the interest of the applicant to, Ms. Toothaker, is it your interest to do both of these together, or would you rather do them separately? It's not on.
Chair, thank you so much. Stephanie Toothaker. The city is actually the applicant on these, and I believe the city will be presenting, but I assume that they would like to handle it together.
So are we going to hear these items together? Yes? Okay. And we'll vote on them separately. So at this time, I'll look for disclosures for case number UDP Z24001 and case UDP Z24002. Marilyn?
None.
Sherry?
None.
Patrick?
None.
Brad?
None.
Jay?
None.
None.
I walked the property. Site visit.
Mary?
I drove the property.
And none for me.
You got more steps, though.
Good evening, board members. Michael Ferreira, urban planner, case planner for this item, Z24001. This application is to rezone 991,359 square feet of land located at 150 Northwest 68th Street from residential multifamily mid-rise, medium-high density RMM 25 district to Uptown Urban Village Northeast UUV NE district. This property is part of the city's Uptown project area, which is part of the incentive program where the city will process the rezoning application on behalf of the owner. This property is also a mobile home park, which has certain requirements for, as per the Florida State Statute 723.083, which has certain requirements regarding the removal of mobile homeowners without first determining that there's adequate mobile home parks and facilities exist for the relocation of the mobile home owners. The applicant did provide a Pan American Estates mobile home park housing study and it was established that there is adequate existing resources for the mobile home owners at Pan American Estates Mobile Home Park. If you guys have any questions, I'm here, and so is the applicant.
Any questions?
Yes, I have some questions.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
This concept of doing a study that says that there is adequate replacement housing. I noticed in the paperwork that you looked at units that were from $1 to $2,000 a month in all of Broward County, So that's one thing I'm concerned about. There may be no locally available or even close available, but it's all of Broward County, which I assume is pursuant to the statute, as long as it's countywide. Is that correct?
I don't have specifics on the actual study. I don't know if you have more insights.
The residents have actually all moved. They all were offered, so pursuant to that statute, they were offered an incentive program if they would like to move. They've all taken that incentive program. We've already been working with the city on the demolition. There was actually a fire at the trailer park.
Thank you. That's fine. I'm good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just one. It's kind of related to what Marilyn was talking about. And kind of changes my opinion a little bit after hearing what you said. So everything that I hear on the news is there's nothing affordable, but this study shows, oh, there's plenty affordable, which is weird. And I don't know how many units were there. Do you guys know how many units existed on that property before the fire?
I don't think it exceeded what the code allowed. At 25 units per acre, what was it, Ms. Toothaker, 27 acres?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's,
I don't have the exact number for how many units there were. I don't know the answer, and I don't want to guess. It's probably buried deep in this study that Urban Group did.
Yeah, I looked through it. I didn't see a number, and that's why I was asking. It just
driving it.
We're
John.
losing a lot of affordable housing because of the fire. And now, we're told that they've taken up residents in other areas in Broward County where it's affordable, but we still have a deficit of affordable housing. And it's a much broader subject than just this project. But, when we change these projects over from affordable to possibly non-affordable, and I'm not saying that's where they're going with it in the future, but that could be something that happens. This could be market rate rent, and we'll lose a pool of units. So that's the only reason I brought it up, and that's where I thought Marilyn was going with it. I mean, it's interesting that there was a fire.
Well, there was a fire after everybody moved out. So
Right.
what happened was, pursuant to the statute, the incentives were offered. Everyone took them up on it. I think in large part because the mobile homes were in extremely poor condition.
Mm-hmm.
They were extremely unsafe, in extremely poor condition. And I think they thought, I don't want to guess, but my assumption is that they had an opportunity to take
Right.
some cash, and they used that. And then what happened was there were some homeless people, and there was some drug activity. Then there was the fire, which you probably saw on the news, and we worked expeditiously. It was a big, I think, caused by some drug activity. And so the city was very helpful in helping us expeditiously process demolition permits, which allowed us to put up a construction fence so that the property couldn't be accessed because it was extremely unsafe.
Right.
So I just wanted to mention there are several streets, and yes, many of the homes are in extremely poor condition, which I think Steve, having walked it instead of driven it, could say. It did look like there were still some people in some of those.
There might be a couple, but it's not a lot.
But it's not a lot. And my only question is, the city's the applicant on this, and we see so much, just to piggyback off you and Marilyn, we see so much about providing affordable housing. I'm wondering what the city's doing to replace. The incentives is one thing, but what are you doing to replace the inventory? Elsewhere in the not you. I'm talking to the city. You're off the hook here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask that question?
The
city is the
I don't know,
applicant.
but I mean, I think it's all in the numbers, quite frankly, Mary, because I think across the board, not only this board, but into the community, everybody's concerned about, I'm not going to call it affordable housing, because I think it's workforce housing, you know, but so and what I need to understand before I even delve into this is, and I apologize for calling you to the podium thinking that you were the agent, but you're actually the applicant. So I'm not sure I understand the role reversal, and I don't know if I need to in this, but, you know, you're a very talented woman. I figure you could represent yourself, but I guess these guys are pretty affordable. They're a lot less than attorneys. But is there some peculiarity to
In this particular case, it's because it's in the uptown area. So a couple years ago, the incentive was if you wanted to rezone to one of the uptown zoning districts, the city would do that on behalf of the owner because we would get it done a lot faster.
Dwayne Spence.
Well, you should put out a little market. Well, no, I'm sorry. No, take that back. So
Dwayne Spence, Deputy City Attorney.
I'm sorry.
I can add a little more clarity to it. So the zoning districts were developed in the past and intended as a comprehensive rezoning of the area. However, the resources and the funds weren't there to do a comprehensive rezoning of the area. So as an alternative, the city offered to property owners within the area who are willing to bring an application forward and had a project ready to process the rezonings as an applicant. But the intent is to further this rezoning in that area, but as the applicants are prepared with development projects.
Okay. So just for clarity, my understanding is the RMM 25 is 25 units per acre, maximum height 35 feet, and I forget what I figured the density out to be earlier today, but it's over 500 units. Going to the UUV Northeast now gives you 50 units per acre and allows you to go up to 75 feet. So I think if it's the intent of this organization to create housing, whether it be affordable, whether it be workforce, whether it be market rate, it would seem that they've got a lot more opportunity with inventory if that's what their desire is. And obviously that's what we're all concerned about. But
I did just want to, because I just found the information, there were 204 mobile homes. So obviously, to your point, Chair, this gives you the opportunity to do a lot more there, hopefully, in the future.
so my tandem question to that is, with the Live Local, is there an impact from any of the properties around that would change the intensity one way or another, or what ownership has desire to do with it?
What I can say is I don't have a site plan. This is just the rezoning, and this is not the first one of these you've done. There's 3 of them that are all going at the same time. This is just the one I'm working on. I will tell you that the ownership is working on a residential product that will come through the process, so it is intended to be residential. And to your point, I will say it's not a Live Local project. It's just a residential project. There is a land use plan amendment that you also voted on for a TOD that was meant to incentivize housing in the uptown area. And this is one of the projects that essentially, when the city said, we think this employment area, this is employment land use now, but it's about to change to TOD. And I think when the city, from a philosophical standpoint, said we need some housing up here in the uptown, and it was sort of a call to investors and developers to do that. This is one of the companies that did that. One of several.
I still see 3 lights on. Marilyn, I'll start with you again.
Oh, I have a light on? Okay. Yeah, I think we're doing very well up
Turn
here.
it off. Turn it off. No, go ahead. Turn it off.
No. I think we're doing very well up here in the uptown. I mean, we're rocking and rolling on all of these changes up here, and this is the city's vision for the uptown, and incentivizing it by doing the legwork. We have accomplished, I think, some of the goals of the commission in incentivizing and encouraging development up there. It's unfortunate that we don't actually have a moderate income or a workforce housing component of that incentive, and maybe we should be talking about that or encouraging the city to do that, since there seems to be so much push up here maybe some affordable housing requirements or incentives, as well as the incentive of doing the project, running the project through the process itself. So that's my only comment. This is the plan. The plan is being effectuated. This is it.
Which we did incorporate an affordable housing component when we created the zoning for this area. But I guess that'll come later.
It'll come later
when you do your
when we plan the site plan.
Is that what you had your light on for, Mary?
No, I just wanted to say I drove from this project up in the Uptown area across the street. For anybody who didn't visit the site, the first project that we approved is up, and it's kind of exciting to see what's happening. We did the zoning in this area, and we've rezoned some properties. We're seeing what's happening, and I drove from there down to the one that Courtney Crush presented on Broward, and again, a whole different. So many times we see the few projects that come before us clustered in one area, so it was kind of neat to drive and all around the city and see things being, evolving. And then I drove past the other mobile home park that was rezoned several years ago, which has now been built out. I'm pointing at Andrew because Robert did it, but it was, and now it's built, and you can just see that we have a lot of housing options in many parts of our city, not just concentrated in one. I think it's important for the people of Fort Lauderdale to realize that, what a big city we live in and how many opportunities there are. So I just wanted to add that.
Steve?
Yeah, I was along the lines of what Mary was saying. The Uptown project is working. We're getting folks to move out there, and that particular project and the other one that we had approved before, which Mary said is built, it's right next to a shopping center. There's transit there. It's encouraging folks to come here and live out of our downtown and help some of the traffic there. And even though it's not affordable housing, the more housing we put out there, the more affordable it all becomes. It's a supply and demand thing, so it does help it. I will say that our in lieu of cost, what we're charging, about $10,000 or so, of not including affordable housing, needs to be raised, though. We need to incentivize more, and the way to do it is to raise that number a little more. And I don't know how long it takes to do that, but as prices continue to go up, we're always going to be behind the game on that, really, is what it is. So I think something needs to be looked at that to incentivize affordable housing. But all in all, I'm happy with this project, definitely.
Any other comments before I open it up to the public? Jay?
My understanding was that we were out of units and that to build anything you had to include like workforce housing or pay the fee in lieu of. Is that right?
In you're referring to the flex unit.
Yeah.
So the flex unit pool, you're right, is depleted, and anything that you want to build with flex units require the payment in lieu that Mr. Gannon was just talking about, which just went up to $10,300 because it's got a 3% raise every year. Those units, while gone, could have only been used in the flex receiving zone.
Yep.
This was up north, and the concept was that the city processed a TOD, which is the land use plan amendment that you voted on, to add additional units. This is the only place in the city where there will be additional units that are not Geller units.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to be heard on this item? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close the public portion, bring it back to the board for further discussion or a motion. And we're going to be making a motion on these individually, so let's start with UDP Z24001. Motion, madam.
Would you like me to state the motion for you, Mary? Okay. Okay. So, motion to recommend approval of the rezoning for case number UDPZ 24001 based on the findings of fact in the city staff report, and the board hereby finds that the application meets the criteria of the ULDR cited in the city staff report. Additionally, with this particular item, I'll state this, in accordance with section 723.083 Florida statutes, the board finds that adequate mobile home parks or other suitable facilities exist for the relocation of the mobile home owners. In page 2 of your staff report, At the bottom of it, you note that that's where the statute is cited, that the city cannot approve this without making that finding.
Okay, well said. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I don't know if the motion's right, Leslie.
Patrick, did you second it?
Yeah. My
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we vote?
Real quick, who was the second?
Patrick.
Gentleman right to my left.
Yeah. When you read the motion to approve, we are affirmatively saying that we approve this housing study and we agree with the findings of this housing study that there are adequate housing units available in Broward County to replace the units that were removed?
Well, in the statute, it just says no agency of municipal, local, county, or state government shall approve any application for rezoning or take any other action which would result in the removal or relocation of mobile home owners residing in a mobile home park without first determining that adequate mobile home parks or other suitable facilities exist for the relocation of mobile home owners. So it doesn't say specifically Broward County; they could go anywhere.
So, as the motion was stated, it was just that you have determined that adequate mobile home parking, mobile home parks or other suitable facilities exist for the relocation of these particular mobile home owners. And you had testimony earlier from Ms. Toofaker that they've actually received payment and have found alternative housing. So that's your determination. This motion did not say you've adopted the findings.
Oh, okay.
of
As long as
the
this
report.
motion doesn't say we've adopted the findings, but in this case,
you've made
this.
the determination in this case that adequate mobile home parking or other suitable facilities exist for the relocation of the mobile home owners.
So if you look at page 2 at the bottom of your staff report, that's where your findings are that you're probably focused on, where it talks about that the applicant submitted a study and it discusses the fact that the study established there's adequate housing that's existing. So if you agree with the statements as made in the city staff report, then that is what's in this motion. If you want to agree with the testimony, you can do that as well. It's just I mentioned that and I said city staff report, but if you'd like to do the testimony, up to you.
When I drove this today, there were many empty pads and obviously many empty, the majority of everything I saw, there were broken windows, there were things being removed. I don't know if that makes a difference, but obviously it is not. There is no one living there and hasn't been for a while looking at the condition of the property. That was part of I'm glad I drove it because otherwise you would have had me feeling terrible.
Yeah, but I'm still concerned because the people who were living there were incentivized to move. It wasn't necessarily that they found other adequate housing resources pursuant to this study. They were incentivized to move. I'm not going to make a big deal out of this, but I'm concerned about it. Nevertheless, I'm going to vote for it because I think it's a good project.
So there's a nuance point that Shari has made that her motion includes the statement from the staff report, which relies upon that study. So if there's a distinction between what I was suggesting, which is based on the testimony presented here today versus the actual study, if you want to make a finer point on that.
I would be much more comfortable doing it based upon the testimony that the people were incentivized to move and voluntarily left, as opposed to approving.
Do you accept that as a change to your motion?
Yes, that's excellent. Thank you,
Do we
Marilyn.
understand that as okay?
Chair, can I make a comment?
Sure. Go ahead, Sherry.
It seems to me that, again, it is a bit semantical, but it seems to me that by virtue of the fact of having been given an incentive, as Marilyn put it, that it did meet the statute criteria because it says that they were adequately relocated. Well, they were. They took their money and they relocated. So we have met that statute. I don't know that we need to make any other finding.
No, it's just to state that on the record in your recommendation to the City Commission, because they're ultimately going to approve it or deny it. It's just that this cannot pass from any local government without meeting the requirements in the statute. That's why.
Right. So the commission is going to make the same finding, and I think it's helpful that you had this discussion so they understand where you come from, and as far as your recommendation, that you're clear that you don't. Some of you don't think that there's adequate housing in Broward, but in this particular case, they met the statute based on the incentive program that it provided.
Can I just add that when we did the zoning for the uptown area, affordable housing was something that we had a whole conversation. I'm sorry Jim's not here tonight because he did a really good presentation for us at the time. But there was a lot of conversation around it, so hopefully that's going to be something that's handled differently than maybe what we've seen in the past, would be my hope.
All right. We have a motion. We have a second. We've had a discussion, so let's vote.
Okay, just to clarify, we're voting on UDP-Z24001.
Correct.
Ms. Mamano?
Yes.
Mr. Scheckman?
Yes.
Mr. Barranco?
Yes.
Mr. McTeague?
Yes.
Ms. Furtick?
Yes.
Mr. Gannon?
Yes.
Ms. McCartney?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Chair Weymouth?
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. We'll now take up case number UDP Z24002. I will assume that all of the dialogue that we just heard applies to this case as well. Do you need to read in your
Yes, it's
Okay.
a separate motion. Motion to recommend approval of the rezoning for case number UDP Z24002. In accordance with Section 723.083 Florida statute, the board finds that adequate mobile home parks or other suitable facilities exist for the relocation of mobile home owners based on the testimony heard today, and the rezoning meets the criteria in the ULDR.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Can I read the same motion that you read and just add the right, do I have to reread it and do the same case number?
Different case number.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. I actually have it here in front of me. Believe it or not, it's UDP Z24002, and otherwise the motion is the same.
Yes, I read that case number. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you were just asking who was.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Scheckman?
Yes.
Ms. McCartney?
Yes.
Mr. Gannon?
Yes.
Ms. Furtick?
Yes.
Ms. Mamano? Mr. McTeague?
Yes.
Mr. Barranco?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Chair Weymouth?
Yes. Congratulations. Have a nice evening. Up next, case UDP S23040. Disclosures, Marilyn? Sherry?
Oh, none.
Spoke with counsel for the applicant.
Spoke with. Oh, you ready? Spoke
I'm
with
ready.
counsel. Brad Cohen spoke with counsel for the applicant.
Jay?
Sorry, this is S23064 or 040?
040.
Okay. I was just wondering why Mr. Shine is up there. If he's on 0, okay. His name is agent on the next one.
I do have Damon Ricks with me as well.
Okay. I have nothing to disclose. I was just curious why he was up there.
He likes it, right? John?
Spoke to you about this one? I thought I did like a week
We'll
or
say
two ago.
yes.
It's a while. Yeah. Yeah, I spoke to applicant's counsel a while ago.
Steve?
Site visit, but why didn't you call me?
It's
Mary?
been a week. It's been a week, Steve. I'm sorry.
I also visited the site, and I'm also wondering why this end of the table's getting left out down here. So,
No,
I talked to him for a long time, if that helps.
no
was
disclosures
true.
from me. So, Mr. Shine.
Hello, Andrew Shine with Lockery and Chakas, representing the property owner. I also have Damon Ricks with me, with Ricks Moat Scheffler, Moat and Ricks. Sorry, engineering. He put the application together, and we represent the owner. This is 6001 power line. Yep. All right. This is 6001 Power Line. It is right next to FXE Airport, Fort Lauderdale Executive, right on the left. This is the property. It's currently an industrial warehouse property. They have a couple tenants in there. They have general contractors. They have a window warehouse showroom, ancillary office space. And the reason we're here tonight is there's also a freight forwarding company there, which mostly handles vehicles. So they take in vehicles and they ship them out. This area in blue is the area in question on why we had to do the application today. And as you can see, the parking lot it's not in great shape. It's not the prettiest lot. So as part of this application tonight, we're also doing a big beautification of this site here. This is the site. That area in gray is that same area in blue that I showed before. The reason for the parking reduction is they use this area to store some of the cars that are going out being shipped elsewhere, but we can't double count those parking spaces, so we can't use them to store the cars that we go to ship and count them towards the required parking. They had been putting cars in the parking lot. They're not derelict vehicles. They're mostly operational and look nice. But they had been storing the cars out there, and they ended up getting a code violation because they were double dipping into that. They didn't realize that they were, but so we are taking this whole area out of our provided and required parking and using it to store the vehicles. The area in red is going to be a new wall. It's an 8-foot wall. If you're doing outdoor vehicle storage, you have to screen from the abutting rights of way. So they're adding an 8-foot wall, beautifying the landscaping on both the west and the east. We are removing, unfortunately, 3 black olive trees. They're not in the best health, but we are replacing them with 3 silver buttonwoods and 5 stopper trees. So it's a decent trade-off. We're also adding 63 shrubs to line the wall. So that's the reason for the parking reduction is they're using that space to store the vehicles. We did submit a parking study with this. The parking study could justify, just by the raw numbers, justify 195 spaces provided. We're providing 198, so we're doing an 18 space reduction. And that's just the numbers. If you actually go out to the site, this parking lot is not very used at all. It's all warehouse uses. We did send out information for a public participation meeting. Nobody showed up. There are only 9 different property owners within 300 feet of here. It was not 9 or 12 within 300 feet. We did also reach out to the airport to see if they had concerns. We didn't expect that they would, and we didn't hear any concerns from them. So that's the request, an 18-space parking reduction.
Any questions for Mr. Shine?
Chair,
Go ahead.
this is a tenant, right, Andrew? The occupant, the freight forwarder?
One of the tenants,
utilizing
yes.
this new building, in effect?
One of the tenants, yes.
Is a tenant. So how long is the lease?
I do not have that information. They also own. They're the owner of the. They're an owner of the building, but they are also a tenant in the building. They own the building.
They're an occupant.
They're an owner-occupant, yes, among other tenants.
Because my concern is that we're doing this for this particular tenant, for this particular use, which could revert back to something else. And then where do we stand in terms of parking appropriate for the building?
Yeah, this tenant owns the building, the entire building.
Well, I think her concern is that if the owner decided he didn't want to do this anymore and moved out, there'd be a new tenant who isn't the owner, and now there's a deficiency in parking. But is this area being designated as vehicle storage?
Yes.
So how does that get treated down the road when this guy moves out? I'm going to jump onto what Sherry is saying, and there's a construction firm that goes in there that requires additional 20 spaces.
I can let the city attorney's office chime in on this as well, but there will be a recorded parking reduction order, which is specific to the use. So if we have to amend the parking reduction order, we have to come back to this board.
That works. That works. Any other questions? All right. At this time, we'll open up for public comment. Anybody who wishes to be heard on this item? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close the public portion, bring it back for additional discussion or a motion.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Steve.
Should I ask earlier? I see a lot of there's a certain page in there that lists the trees and other things, and I see 30-something trees, which maybe 3 or 4 are being removed. But I did not see 30-something trees on that parking lot. The place looks very void and in disrepair. Are there truly a lot of trees, and you're going to end up with 30 trees or 25?
They're mostly on the perimeter. This plan is the tree plan, so they're mostly on the perimeter.
Okay.
They're lining the walls on the west and the east. Okay. Interior, it's an industrial area.
Asphalt lot and
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Somebody like to make a motion?
We have these resolutions that were sent us. Did everybody get a copy of them?
I didn't bring mine. All right.
You are known as Motion Mary.
Hit it, Mary.
All right, well, I'm going to just say this is the 6001 North Powerline Road, a resolution for adopting.
Mary, if you could put on your microphone, please.
Approving a resolution of the Planning and Zoning Board approving a site plan level 3 development permit for parking reduction to reduce the required parking spaces from 216 to 198 for the property located at 6001 North Powerline Road. Coming back to my other cheat sheet that you have so kindly provided us, we find that it is based on the findings of fact, and the board finds that the application meets the standards and requirements and the ULDR. Oh, I'm in the wrong case here. Based on the testimony of staff, and that we find the application meets the standards and requirements of the ULDR and criteria for the proposed use as cited in the resolution.
So I don't think Adam testified, so if you want to base it on the staff report perhaps, I don't believe that Adam, did you testify, Adam? No? Okay, yeah. So unless you want Adam to get up there and talk first.
No, we want to base it on his excellent reports.
Okay, great.
And just for clarity, because your microphone may not have been on, but this is case UDP S23040.
Yeah.
That's in your motion, right? Okay.
So it was, I didn't know whether she had the microphone on or not, just for.
And you include all the staff conditions. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Who was that? Marilyn? Okay. We have a motion second. Any final thoughts or words? Call the roll, please.
Yes. Mr. Bronco?
Yes.
Ms. McCartney?
Yes.
Mr. Gannon?
Yes.
Mr. Scheckman?
Yes.
Ms. Fertig?
Yes.
Mr. McTeague?
Yes.
Ms. Mamano? Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Chair Weymouth?
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes. Case number UDP S23064. Marilyn, would you like to start off with disclosures? Sherry?
None.
Patrick?
Spoke to the agent.
Brad?
Spoke to council.
Jay?
None.
John?
I did speak to the agent on this one. The last one I did not.
Okay.
Thank you for that disclosure. Steve?
Drive-by site visit.
Mary?
And the same.
And none by me. Mr. Shine?
Good
welcome
evening.
Back.
Thank you.
Now he's supposed to be there.
You feel better?
Yes.
Andrew Shine with Lockery and Chakas, representing the property owner. This is Holiday Park Plaza. It's located on Sunrise Boulevard, right across from Holiday Park. The area is outlined in red. To the west of it is the CVS. To the west of that is the Publix. Very well-known shopping center in Fort Lauderdale, at least for those who used to live in Victoria Park, like me, or Lake Ridge area. This is the shopping center from the front. It's a great mix of uses. Dunkin' Donuts, usually most active in the morning. They have H&R Block, usually most active during April. Firehouse Subs, Tropical Cafe, an AT&T store, and unfortunately Tijuana Flats, which is no longer open there. That happened in the middle of this application. But the Trek bicycle that you can see all the way on the right, they used to have both of those easternmost bays. Trek wanted to downsize, so they are moved only into the westernmost part of that bay, and the easternmost part is vacant. And we don't like vacant shopping centers, especially on Sunrise Boulevard. The owner did find a new tenant. It is a fast casual restaurant. I can only say the name if asked, but it is a fast casual restaurant. And this is the site plan for it. The we are in practice. This is, and I'll explain. In practice, this functions as a 12-space parking reduction. On paper, it looks like a 40-space reduction. I didn't see any movement from Brad, so that's okay. But in practice, it operates as a 12-space reduction, and I'll go through that. It's a 2,087 square foot bay. There used to be a Trek in there at 250 square feet. At one space per 250, they required 9 spaces just for the Trek part that left. We're coming in with the restaurant that's 1 per 100 square feet, which would require 21 spaces, rounded up. So it's a 9 versus 21 difference. This new use really requires 12 more than the previous use required. However, this shopping center is a little old, and we need to clean it up too. Right now, let's assume Trek was still in there and had that part of the bay. This would have required 104 spaces, and they have 76 on site. Now that we're going to the restaurant, they require 116 with 76 on site. So this parking reduction is not just for this tenant, but it's kind of cleaning up all of the mix of tenants that have moved in and out in the past, just to get the parking count solid and correct. We did do a parking study, and this was kind of a unique parking study. You don't really get to do a parking study like this too often. A lot of times they're theoretical parking studies where we're looking at numbers on paper. This use generally uses this much parking, and then you add them up and you get the sum total. This one was a little different because all of the uses besides this empty bay were operating. So we were able to actually go out and do parking counts to figure out when peak parking demand is, how many spaces are available during peak parking demand, and is that more or less than the 21 spaces that the new restaurant will require. They found that the parking demand was the biggest was on Thursday and Saturday, both at 12:30, so more of the lunch crowd parking demand here. And the study found that at all times in that 30-minute peak period, there were at least 43 spaces available. Maybe not all in front. There's a lot of spaces in the back as well. But this, for folks who have been to the shopping center, it's busy, but it's quick. People are in and out of the shopping center very quick. A lot of people use the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru and don't have to park. But at all times, 43 spaces were available. So that is more than double the 21 spaces that this restaurant would ordinarily require. So definitely meets the requirements in the code for a unique use and a unique site where all the shared uses just function in a way that the demands are different, and there will always be enough spaces to satisfy this use. That's all I got.
Any questions for Mr. Schein before we open it up to the public?
Chair, I have another.
Sherry?
So your traffic study or your parking study contemplated this use, right? It contemplated a fast casual of whatever caliber it is and whatever popularity it is that would drive the need for or the allowance for the reduction. Because, there are some restaurants and then there are others that drive a lot more traffic. So while this could be empirically correct, is it correct for this use? And what can you tell us about that? Because I don't want to approve this and then have people parking up and down the street and backing up into the road. Sunrise is bad enough. I mean, how can you convince me that this is sufficient for this new use?
Can you ask me what restaurant it is?
What restaurant is it?
It's a Panda Express, so it's more of a nighttime.
Never mind.
It's not a Chick-fil-A. It's not a Chick-fil-A. They're not queuing on Sunrise Boulevard. It's more of a nighttime restaurant. So you have Dunkin' Donuts, you have Tropical Cafe that are more morning. You have AT&T, which is open during the day. So we're not expecting that kind of issue there. The use is just kind of a line where that doesn't happen.
Any other questions? At this time, we'll open it up for public comment. Is there anybody that wishes to be heard on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion, bring it back to the board for further conversation or a motion.
I just want to put something in, because I normally hate parking reductions because they make me crazy. But with this parking reduction, there's two things that I think that that I am considering is number one is the use of the Panda Express, and I'm familiar with kind of the traffic for Panda Expresses because of my family's in commercial real estate. But besides that, the traffic study that was done indicating that there was at peaks there were still 40 spaces that were available is also weighing into my decision tonight. But normally I'm not a fan of parking reductions. And also for retail, if you don't have parking, the market would say the place will go out of business. So it's to their advantage to do a full market study and parking study that I believe they did. Okay. Oh, Mary's going to do it. Good. Okay.
I'm really ready this time.
Then turn your mic on and make yourself be heard.
Sherry's figuring 6 cases. She ought to be able to figure this out. So I'm going to start with a motion to approve the resolution adopting the case number UDP S23064 based on the findings of fact, the staff report, and the board finds the application meets the standards and requirements of the ULDR and criteria for the proposed use as cited in the resolution. And I think there's one condition in the staff report which we also recommend.
Does she do that all right, that we can move on? Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Steve Gannon seconded. Any further discussion before we vote? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Furtick?
Yes.
Mr. Scheckman?
Yes.
Ms. Mamano? Yes. Mr. Gannon?
Yes.
Ms. McCartney?
Yes.
Mr. Barranco?
Yes.
Mr. McTeague?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Chair Weymouth?
Yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all. Have a good
Have
night.
a good night. All right. Case number UDP T24002. Carlann.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. Carlann Devenish with Development Services Department. And while I wait for the presentation to load, that's
We
not
already
it.
voted on that one.
This is an amendment to the Unified Land Development Regulations, Section 4739, to update the height and measurement for the residential zoning districts. Thank you. Yes. The areas that are being impacted would be south and southwest of here. The neighborhoods are listed there: Chula Vista Isles, Melrose Park, Lauderdale Isles, Riverland Manors, Riverland Village, and Riverland Woods. So these are all what we are considering, or what are considered annex zoning districts within the Unified Land Development Regulations. So the reason, the way how this effort came about is that an applicant came in and submitted a permit to try to add a second story to an existing structure, and the applicant was told that the maximum height is at 20 feet with the 2 stories. There was the zoning administrator and the applicant didn't agree on how to interpret what a story is, and so an application was sent to the Board of Adjustment to challenge the zoning administrator's interpretation. Ultimately, the Board of Adjustment upheld the zoning administrator's interpretation, but did understand what the applicant was suggesting or was saying. Therefore, the board did send a communication to the City Commission to have staff to look into possibly making some changes to how height is being measured. And this is how we got to the proposal. So as you can see, and this is just a snippet of what the term story, how it is defined, it does mention that for the purposes of determining height of a building, the story shall be considered 10 feet. And that's how, when you look into the existing code, it says for those residential zoning district, it just says 2 stories. So when you say 2 stories and you go to this definition, you see, okay, 10 stories per foot. And that's how we land at maximum of 20 feet for those zoning districts. And so staff is proposing to change those zoning districts measurement by eliminating the term story from the code to align with the rest of the residential zoning districts within the city. For example, RS8 or RS 4.4. Because we don't use the term story to measure height for our single-family zoning districts.
And Carlin, just a quick correction. I think you meant 10 feet per story as opposed to the opposite.
Did
right?
I say the? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
10
that's
feet
okay.
per story.
Just to correct the
So
record.
maximum height of 20 feet.
Yeah, we understood
it. And so we are proposing to change the height from 20 feet to 35 feet, which would align with the rest of the residential zoning districts within the city. So RS 3.52, RS 6.85A, RS 6.85B, and RD 12.22, 2 stories at a maximum of 20 feet to just 35 feet in height. For RS 6.70, that is Melrose Park neighborhood. Melrose Park did opt to remain at 20 feet, so we are keeping them at 20 feet instead of going up to 35 feet. So as you can see on the map there, those are the neighborhoods that are all going to be going up to 35 feet for the single-family homes. So that would include duplexes and townhomes. Even though they're attached, they're considered single-family. So just wanted to clarify that. And as you can see with this map, RS 6.70, which is Melrose Park, will remain at 20 feet. For RM 12.67 and RM 16, we are proposing to go from 2 stories or 20 feet to 35 feet for the single-family homes. And for the multifamily dwellings, we are proposing 40 feet. So if you want to find the equivalent to like a RM15 zoning district, which all have a maximum height, all of the uses within RM15 are at a maximum height of 35 feet. This is already at 4 stories, so we just left them equivalent to 40 feet and not taking off 5 feet. For RM33, this is a multifamily zoning district. We are proposing the same thing, increasing the single-family dwellings to 35 feet. And then for the multifamily dwellings, we are proposing to increase it to 55 feet. This would be similar to a RMM 25 zoning district. So as you can see on the map, those zoning districts that I just mentioned are on the outskirts of Melrose Park. They're right up at the top, right along Broward Boulevard, sort of. So those will all be either 35 feet for single family or up to 55 feet for multifamily. Staff is also proposing to add dimensional tables. The existing code, the way how it's the regulations are laid out, it's in paragraphs and there's multiple small tables, and so we condense all the dimensional standards into one. We are not changing anything other than the height, but we are proposing the tables to just condense the dimensional standards for each of those zoning districts and each of those requirements. So this is just an example of how all the tables for all of the zoning districts that we are proposing to change the height will look. And that is my presentation. I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Jay, do you have a question? Your light's on. Do you have a question?
No.
Okay. John?
I don't have a question.
No?
I just have a comment.
Okay.
So I grew up over there as a kid. I grew up on 28th Way, which is part of Chula Vista Isles. And that whole area was part of Broward County. So we were all on septic system. We didn't have, City of Fort Lauderdale trash and all that stuff. It was the Wild West. So it was a different area. And, it was annexed by the City of Fort Lauderdale. And I've done a few projects back there, and it's been kind of crazy dealing with this code buried in the back of our code. Not consistent at all. It's a royal pain. One of my fellow architects lives in the area. he ran into this situation where he wants to redevelop his property because of the massive floods from the airport, and he hit the same wall. And, I didn't agree with the city of Fort Lauderdale on their interpretation either. But it's good that they're cleaning it up and realize that, hey, this is an antiquated code that made no sense, and they're just enforcing what was on paper. So this is just the cleanup. I like the whole thing. I don't really like the architect. His name is Jack Brown, for the record. Just want to put that out there.
It's on the record.
All right. And that's it. Thanks.
Marilyn?
Yeah, I'm reading this letter from Earl Prisley, the president of Lauderdale Isles Civic Association, and he describes this as a member of the board a resident made a presentation to the board regarding the building heights and his plan to build a new home. And so I guess this was a neighbor who came in and told them, what his issue was. So it's not, the city did not go out and solicit or make a presentation to the board?
No, not to Lauderdale Isles. No.
All right,
what
so
we
then-
did reach out, and we did end up getting that letter of support.
Well, then their support is for unanimously approved supporting a code change to limit the building height to 2 stories and less than 30 feet. So we're not going to 35 feet here.
No, we are going to 35 feet.
Well, that's contrary to what they supported then. Because they supported limiting the building height to 2 stories and less than 30 feet.
When I originally read this, so what the applicant was originally proposing was the 2 stories at 30 feet, which the city was saying, no, it's 20 feet. So I think what he was trying to say, and someone could clarify from the public, was trying to say that I agree with us changing the limitation of 30 feet.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
I understand.
Who is the applicant here for this zoning change? This person or the city?
The city is the applicant, but because we have heard from several folks over the years about this change, and the Board of Adjustment did send a communication to the City Commission, the staff then initiated the effort.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. I love cleanups. Cleanups are always a good thing, especially when there's ambiguity. But one of those or 2 of those slides show you going from 30 feet to 35 feet, 20 feet to 35 feet. That's an extra story. Did everybody understand that you were raising the height limit in single-family homes from 2 stories, 20 feet to 35 feet?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's I'm just reading the letter, and it does not appear to be that way. But I take your word for it if you say they understand, because when this guy calls me and said, what did you do? I'm going to tell him that you all told me that it was okay. Okay?
Understood.
All right, and I'm glad that you took Melrose out, because Melrose was not interested, and that's democracy for you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments before we open up to the public for comment? Is there anybody from the public that would like to be heard on this? Were you sworn in at the beginning of the meeting? Please take the oath. Are either of you speaking as well? Okay. Are you going to speak? Have you been sworn in?
Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Please state your name, sir.
Eric Silva. Good evening. My family and I have lived in Lauderdale Isles since 1999. We've been working on plans for a 2-story home for several years and submitted a building permit in 2022. As noted in the staff report, the current height limits are confusing. This height limit is more restrictive than other neighborhoods in Fort Lauderdale and all of Broward County. Staff's proposed amendment will provide property owners the same development rights as other neighborhoods and clearly define the height limits and provide flexibility for construction of improvements to our homes. And I would like to thank staff for preparing it and the board for their support. Okay.
Thank you. Sir, would you like to be heard? Please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Daniel Solomon. I'll be quick. I'm the next door neighbor of Eric, and we live in Lauderdale Isles, and there are many homes that are pretty tall, and being next door to Eric, I have no problem with any height adjustment that would occur as a next door neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else before we close the public hearing? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Bring it back for additional comment or a motion.
I'm going to take a stab at this. Site plan. This is rezoning. No, this is here. I'm sorry. Thank you. Motion. Motion to recommend approval. I move to recommend approval of case number UDP T24002, and the board hereby finds that the text amendments to the UDLR are consistent with the comprehensive plan.
ULDR, you mean? ULDR.
Yes, ULDR. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cohen. Any additional discussion? Please call the roll.
Miss McCartney,
Yes.
Miss Mamano,
Yes.
Mr. Scheckman,
Yes.
Mr. Barranco,
Yes.
Miss Fertig,
Yes.
Mr. Gannon,
Yes.
Mr. McTeague,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen,
Yes.
Chair Weymouth.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you for coming out. All right, any communication to the City Commission? Steve, your light's still on. I'm assuming that's a no. Mary, your light's on. I know you got something to say.
Well, I don't really want to communicate this to the city commission, but I want to communicate to you all. Been listening to a lot of conversation about advisory boards, and I know how busy all of you are, and I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate what you do. I don't know that people think volunteers as much as they criticize what they do, and you are a great board. So I just wanted to take this. No, seriously, I think this is. No, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to say we're all like so busy, but I have just really enjoy them and am just honored to serve with you. Thank you.
It's an interesting breed because many of us have served on many different boards, some with each other. But I agree with what you're saying.
And I feel like Mary is the Derek Jeter of this board, really holding it together. The captain. We're going to call you captain from now on. Thank you, Mary.
So, I don't know if this is a communication to the City Commission, but I saw that the City Commission is going to start meeting at the Museum of Art. Are we ever going to get any respite from having to sit in the in the waiting room of the? I know I'm not offending you. This is where you come every day, but you know, it'd be nice to find something more official, if you will. And that's just me speaking.
Like
so,
the Museum of Art?
Listen, I was talking to Marilyn. It took her an hour to get here, and it took me a better part of 40 minutes to get here. And so,
I was an art major. I wouldn't mind that.
You know, a lot of this really has to do with...
Is there any chance of moving this into something more official?
A lot of it has to do with resources and costs associated with where those meetings are held. So, like for right now, obviously we have this space. It doesn't cost the city extra, but we can certainly look into it, and I can get back to the board as far as, you know, any discussions that are going on that I might not be aware of.
Even if it's at the Holiday Park, whatever they call that, the annex or whatever, where there's sufficient parking and it's east side. And,
the hockey rink.
Yeah, they
So
won't let you
from
do that.
that space, I understand there's a lot of conflicts with evening activities. I tried to look into that space in the past. I know there were some Wi-Fi issues, obviously things we could get over, but the other conflict was really the programming that's planned there that conflicted with some of our meetings, so it wouldn't have been a long-term good solution. But I'll look
It
back
just makes it a
into
little bit
and let you
difficult
know.
as the chair to balance people who show up and then others. I got caught in traffic, and I know others did, and so it would just, you know, either that or have the city commission come out here and have their meetings out here.
Hey, Mike, how about the Riverside?
How
That'd
about
be
the
nice.
Riverside? We can do that.
You know people.
We can do that. All right. Anybody have anything for the good of the city? Man, you guys are champs tonight. Anyone make a motion?